First of all, Andrew, thanks that you wanted to join us to come to us for this interview. I'm very excited for this. So okay. Dobry wieczór wszystkim. Witamy na 7. już z kolei świadomym RPGowaniu z kulturą przy stole. I jest to już 7. odcinek naszego drugiego sezonu. Dziś wieczorem rozmawiamy z Andrew Peregrine, który wydał Diunę i już wkrótce Diuna będzie po polsku, a już niedawno temu, bo tydzień temu wyszedł dodatek do Diuny Sand and Dust. I dziś wypytamy o to Andrew i nie tylko o te rzeczy. Oczywiście pojawi się ten wywiad na naszym YouTube'owym kanale, więc zapraszam Was wszystkich do subskrybowania nas, do dawania lajków i szczególnie jeszcze do subskrybowania i do followowania na wszystkich social media Miśia Gry, który to dał nam tą inicjatywę i ten w sumie zaszczyt rozmawiać dzisiaj z Andrew, więc Miś Gry będzie dzisiaj prowadził ten wywiad. I Was też zapraszam na social media Misia. Good evening, everyone. Today we are having our 7th meeting for świadome RPGowanie z kulturą przy stole, with culture at the table. So we are today having an interview with Andrew Peregrine, who is the publisher for Dune, which soon will be in Polish. And also 1 week ago there was a come out for the supplement to Dune, Sand and Dust. And today, Miś Gry will be interviewing Andrew, asking him questions about Dune, and not only, also for role-playing games and role-playing gaming. And so subscribe us, subscribe Miś Gry, and enjoy today's meeting. So, Misiu, before I pass the mic to you, Andrew, thank you very much that you came to us, to our server, to have this conversation with us.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here. Yeah.
I'm very, very glad, and I'm very excited about this meeting today. So, Misiu, the mic is on you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Andrew. As I have Googled it and found information about you, what we know about you is that you are working on the role-play games a long, long time, and you have put your fingers and put your mind and your creation into the Doctor Who, Firefly, the Judge Dredd, the Vampire Masquerade, Warhammer, even the 1st edition, and which is quite massive amount of the supplements and the material that you have created.
Yes, I basically nagged my way around most of the gaming industry and said, "Can you do your games are really cool? Can I do some work on them?" In the desperate hopes that I would be cool too. I think.
Okay, well, that and you are cool. Yeah, you have created so many massive, beautiful things with game Dune, which we're gonna talk about today too. I have spoke with the people who have listening now today, and ask them if they have any questions to you, and we have made like massive brainstorm to what we want to talk about you, and there is a few very excellent questions which I'm gonna ask you today about, and one of them is how you have begun your adventure in the role-playing games.
In games, well, I have to go back a very, very long time. I'm getting very old now. I started gaming when I was at school in what would be, I think, about 1981, when I was about 11. Don't do the maths any further from that. And again, in the 80s, D&D was around. It was all over the place, and it's now lovely to see it having such a resurgence now. I mean, it's always been here, obviously, as you know, and you as everyone know. But it's nice to see it more in the mainstream again as well. But back then, it was something people were playing at school a lot, and there were D&D clubs, and it just looked amazing. And like I suspect many people, I just started playing and I got hooked. And my biggest revelation at the time, because obviously D&D was the main thing we would play. And but I first remember branching out into other games when Games Workshop started doing reprinting some of these amazing American, very expensive board games. Good Lord, they were £20 at least, which was dreadfully expensive at the time. And Games Workshop were reprinting them for £10 with basically the same box sets. And I remember thinking at one time, oh, I could get the new copy of Deities and Demigods as my next D&D book, but you know, it hasn't got the Cthulhu and Melnibonian mythos in it anymore. I've missed that printing. And then I realised with my same £10, I could buy a whole new role-playing game, that being Call of Cthulhu. And to a certain degree, I'd say I never looked back. But I've continued to play D&D. It always comes back. You never stop playing D&D. And yeah, and then from there it was, you know, I got as many games as I could, played as many as I could, and eventually started getting to do some writing for them. In the sense that you know, as a GM, you know, as someone who's running games more often than playing them, you tend to do an awful lot of, you know, sort of your own work on these things. So a lot of games writing really is just writing up the stuff you're doing anyway, just slightly neater. I used to share a house with Stig, a very good friend of mine still, Angus Abramson, when they were both working on the Valkyrie magazine. So I would nag them, say, oh, can I do reviews? And I've got some ideas for articles. And from there, I started getting just more involved. Once you've got some things in print, it gives you a bit more confidence to start moving into other things. And I just started going around talking to games producers. So I would chat, particularly Seventh Sea was one of my first breaks, where I mailed them. I mailed AEG and said, how do I work on your game, basically? And they came back asking me to do a spec article, and they liked that, and I then got some work from that. And at a similar time, I was a big fan of the Buffy role-playing game from Eden Studios. I was on one of their forums for playtesting. They'd post books up, and you could then, you know, a group of people who knew the game could read it and have a look and offer comments before it went into print. And I suggested something in the Monster Smackdown book. I think I said to them on the forum, oh, it would be nice if you had some detail on vampire hunters in the vampire section, because you haven't got a lot on just the humans who hunt vampires normally. And they said, that sounds like a good idea. Do us a couple of 1,000 words on it. Oh, okay, yes, I will. And you know, once you've got the bug, once you've seen not just your name in print, but your work in print and going out there, it's very hard to stop writing and working. And of course, the more that you keep doing stuff, the more you get a name known in the industry, and then you've got a back catalogue of stuff, which makes it easier to say to people, look, I've worked on these things, can I work on your thing too? And generally, as long as you get a reasonable reputation for hitting deadlines and delivering what they asked you to write in the first place, you'll usually do okay. That's pretty much the extent of what you do for getting into role-playing writing.
You have just actually answered a few questions I want to ask. The one sentence. That's very nice of you. Basically, yeah, it's I can say that in our country in Poland, when we started our adventure in the role-play games, we start with the Dungeons and Dragons 2, but also we have the Warhammer, and then the third game was the Call of Cthulhu. And that's the one we call it main trio, how we start playing. And yeah, I started myself with the Dungeons Dragons, exactly the Advanced Dungeons Dragons, the second edition myself. So I can feel your vibe, how
Yeah.
you can be cooked to the role playing games. The other question I have about your beginning of the hobbies and everything, it's instead of only creating now, because you sit now on the dune and you sit with other time other supplements and all the things, have you got even now time to play games?
Oh yeah, quite easily. I don't really have much of a life outside it. I'm really awful. Yeah, I have a regular Sunday game we play, and we had, obviously during lockdown over here, I did an awful lot of Zoom gaming. I do go to, I'm usually the one running the games, so that usually comes up a lot. But this time recently, actually, we've started playing a Star Wars game at the start of lockdown, and somebody else ran that, which was brilliant. And we've worked our way up to Star Wars Saga Edition. We've been playing, and that one we ran up to. We're at level 10 at the moment, and it's still, we're still carrying forward. It's basically the until our GM says, you know what, I've had enough. Let's do something else. I have this annoying tendency to sort of introduce people to gaming and create new groups, and then realize, oh, I want to keep going with this group, and they're doing some really cool things. I've set up a theatrical gaming group, which is basically other people who have the same work schedule as me, so we can play in afternoons because because obviously I'm usually working in the evenings.
Evenings, yeah, with your shows in the theater, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's a guy. I got together a theatrical group, and one of the girls who works in the same theatre as me was just bemoaning the fact that during lockdown we finally got a regular time to role play, and now we're all back to shows again. We're all on different schedules again, and it's proved a nightmare. So I've gathered an awful lot of groups in the hope that I can get to at least one of them a week. So yes, I do luckily get to do probably far more gaming than I should do. But I tend to try and fit it in. Most of my life is trying to fit things into the schedule and seeing what I can get done in any given week. And so I give myself an awful lot of options. And to a certain degree, that's kind of one of the reasons I write, because I don't get to do quite as much gaming as I like. The idea of getting a regular solid game I can do every week, and it's all just settled, hasn't been the same since I went off to college. And so role playing is writing is kind of a way of doing the role playing when I don't have time to do it. I can sit pondering away, writing some settings or adventures or whatever else is going on, and that scratches the itch of getting to do the actual gaming as well.
As actually, when you mentioned the theater, I have one of the questions that's it's intrigued me too. Does your work in the theater help you with your creativity to create the role-play games? Do you get any ideas from the shows they are run in the theater?
Well, yes and no, possibly not quite the answer you'd think. The main reason it helps me is that theatre is, I believe, like the armed forces, is very much an industry of crazy busy moments and long periods of nothing going on. So I find that actually that one of the things that's most helpful working in theatre, it means I can sit typing at the lighting desk or during an afternoon now and again, and getting some role-playing work done in my work time, which is very helpful. But having said that, I did cross them over recently. One of the few useful things about lockdown is I finally got around to a game I've had in my mind for, oh God, probably 20 years since I started doing gaming, called Opera House, which is one that I kickstarted just this year, and it's a theatrical role-playing game, which is designed to be, it works on sort of 3 levels. One of the reasons I wrote it was to make it a theatre source book, because I see a lot of things. There's a fair few theatre things in role-playing where you'll have, a big fight in a theatre, or there'll be an acting company comes to a D&D village or something, and but number of times I'll look at those things and go, oh, so you've built a theatre but there's no dressing rooms in it, or how do they get a set into it? Oh, and you've detailed all the actors but you haven't detailed any stage management or any technical assistance. And so mostly I wrote Opera House to give people an idea of the strange and complicated work of theatre and what is going on backstage. But also, it's just such a weird and wonderful profession to be a part of. It doesn't take a very large step to create this sort of weird Gormenghast-like world of, in this case, ghosts and cursed props and saboteurs and all kinds of weird stuff. So that's been loads of fun to do, and just basically put my 2 loves together of both theatre and role playing into one big book. And the innovation in terms of rules stuff for it is that the game is designed for you to play it in real time. So you can say that the theatre show you're all working on starts at 7:30 in real time, and you play, your characters need to be on stage at certain points. So when you're running around the theatre, you need to be able to say with enough time. And my character's going back to stage to do their cue or set change or change the lights or go on and do a part, because you can't miss your cues. That's just not an option in the midst of everything that's going on. So there's so that sort of playing in real time has been a nice aspect of that game.
It's just at this moment I just have in my head the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, he's down the basement, the Royal Grand Opera House, where it's set. I'll just give you the blurb part of it. Is that your characters all joined the theatre as either actors, lighting technicians, sound people, dressers, wardrobe, anything, and they all tick a box that said they were happy to do extra duties for an extra, £10 a week or something. And they thought it would just be they'd have to sweep up art backstage or put some chairs out. And what it turns out is that extra duties includes stopping saboteurs having a go at the show, stopping the Morlocks coming up from the deep depths of the basement when the show comes on, stopping ghosts stealing the life out of the audience, and all kinds of other crazy things. But as well as doing your normal job. So you still have to know your lines, do your scene changes and the like, but you've got all this other craziness to deal with. And I'd like to say it's the game 30 years in the making. It's a lot easier to say it's the game that was on my back burner for 30 years that I kept trying to get back to. And only now we had lockdown did I finally get the time to sit down and nail myself to it and go, right, let's finish this game. Possibly actually a little bit inspired by by how theatre was falling apart at the time. I've seen a lot of theatres over here. I suspect it's been the same in Poland and the like, where having been closed all this time and locked and not putting on shows, not being able to put on any shows, many companies and theatres and careers have been left behind. And it's I think that's one of the things that pushed me towards wanting to get Opera House out there and sort of make a noise about theatre again.
Yeah, the corona and the lockdowns, they hit actually almost everyone everywhere. That's quite pretty sad. But actually, that the lockdown gave us opportunity to play more and more, which is now I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with that situation when I need to now divide my time to family and my job and now role playing games.
This is where it hit me, because as I said, I've got lots of different groups that I never get to expect to play all of them in any given week. But as soon as we were locked down and it was all on Zoom, they were like, "Oh, we're all free now." So suddenly I was going, "Oh God, I've got, if anything, too much role playing going on." But they're all really cool games. We were doing a bit of Invisible Sun, which is one of my favourite games now. Some Seventh Seas, some Star Wars Saga Edition, and some things like, and some Victoriana even as well with my friend Walt. And it was like, well, I don't want to do as much gaming as this, but I don't know which one I want to drop because they're all awesome. I don't want to stop playing any of them.
I'm gonna ask that question then about your theater roleplay game. When it's gonna be released to?
Oh, it's already out. Yes,
it's already out.
Yeah, the Kickstarter that I was sadly cheated of getting any award, but no, the game itself is out. It's available through Drive-Thru RPG and in print and PDF. And that funded I think a fair few months ago. So I think I got it out in about January, February.
I must to put the links down in the bottom of the descriptions of the video. That needs to happen. It needs to be happen. It needs to go out. I like the idea of playing the theater.
That one. It was actually quite nice. Is that I ran it with my theatrical group to play test it, and it made a couple of them a little bit teary because they thought, "Yeah, I really miss theatre. This game has just reminded me of all the fun that I'm missing." Not that we are usually fighting cursed props and running around the theatre quite as crazily, but it just had that feel for them, which was obviously one of the things I was going for.
As you create your own games, we have a few young people with us, and probably a lot of more who's gonna listen and watch on the YouTube or on the Spotify. They have the questions about creating the games. Special the games that exactly like, for example, Dune how
Mm.
to craft mechanics for the game to fit exact genre of that game, of that universe.
Okay, well, it's true. I mean, while I am quite a fan of some of these systems that we've had, like GURPS and the like, that have tried to be a universal system, I think to a certain degree every game needs something slightly different. Um, I think the key really is to look at your setting and just think to yourself what it actually needs in terms of um, what you're going to expect as a player if you're playing it. So if you want a game that's fast and quick, you need a simpler system, because a complicated system is going to bog things down and slow down the play. If you want something that's going to be very accessible to people, you want it to obviously have fewer of the weird dice and bits and pieces. But sometimes you want something where you want to get into the details. Is it useful to have really complicated, bits and pieces going on that players can really get their teeth into? So I suppose to a certain degree, it's very difficult to give a general advice to say a game always needs to look to these and this and this and this, because every setting is always slightly different. You'll kind of know it when you see it. I mean, I remember certainly for my work on Doctor Who, I didn't write the actual setting. That was the excellent Dave Chapman did that. And I remember looking at previous editions of Doctor Who, which I've thoroughly enjoyed playing. The Vassar edition was great, but it was kind of that house system, so it didn't feel really Doctor Who-y. And there was the Time Lord game, which is again brilliant. It had all the flavour. It had things like bench knock and scream skill, but it didn't have character creation, and it didn't have a lot of other things you expect of a role-playing game. And I remember looking at the not Dune, the Doctor Who game when I was doing some playtesting for it, and thinking, "Wow, yes, Dave has nailed it. It's Doctor Who. It needs to be simple. Jump straight into the game." And all of those things are, sometimes you'll know it when you see it. It will just play right, but think about things like speed of play and what feels right. I mean, the main one's complicated or simple, I think, for most of these, and that because that is the fast or the slow thing. But also, broadness of skills. You want to have lots of character parties, traits, things like that. But to a certain degree, anything will work. Just tweak and fiddle it the right way. So,
And this question leads to another one. Again, sorry, I'm gonna repeat that word very often, but basically, Dune for me is just like Bible, and I just love that universe. And you make me very happy with creating that game. How to deal with the big and well-known law?
You start small again, and you start small, and you steal ideas from other people. Where we approach this now, I should say it was Nathan Dowdle did the original rules for Dune, but he's not a massive Dune fan. He obviously knows Dune, but he constructed it more from a rules point of view. And then when I came in with Jason Durrell, we started looking at how we work the system and how we make it more Dune and tune it into exactly what the game needed. But when you look at the setting, which is, I mean, it's one of the things I love about Dune, is it is vast. The whole known universe, you have, not just a few hundred years of history, thousands of years of history.
Yes, exactly.
Dune as a setting, even the earliest parts of it, are further away from us here in time than we are from the pyramids and the ancient Egyptians. It's just vast. Those sort of things I love. But what we decided to focus on initially, because we also wanted to make this accessible to people who hadn't read the legion of books that are out there now. Because a lot of people are going to just going to see the movie, which is looking amazing, and that's going to be their introduction to Dune. So we're also looking from this is the thing you always find with a licensed property. You're looking to serve people who have never seen it before and need to know everything from the ground up, and also serve people who are huge fans who don't want to necessarily have to read stuff they've already read, but they want to be able to jump in and get gaming. So what we decided to do was focus on Arrakis, mainly, as they say, it's called Dune for a reason. because I'd noticed with Cubicle 7's One Ring game, that's again a big favourite of mine, that this is what they did. There is the whole vastness of Tolkien, and I've approached this from someone who, between you and me and all listeners, I haven't read Lord of the Rings. Really should get down to it one day. But I've kind of learnt it by osmosis. But every time I'd look, there was the Middle Earth role-playing game. There was the Lord of the Rings role-playing game that was done by, I can't remember. I'm picturing books. I can't remember the setting. But Decipher, that was it. Decipher, yeah, and other ones like that. And I thought, well,
for example.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd like those games, but I don't get what this Tolkien thing is, because it all just feels like another variant of D&D, and I'm not seeing what's so special about it. And it was when I read the One Ring, Cubicle 7's version, that I suddenly realised, oh, I get it now. And the reason for that was because instead of trying to give you the whole world in one, it said, right, you could be from Harad, you can be Corsairs, you can be Orcs, you can be, you know, elves from, anywhere you like. They'd gone, tell you what, let's just start around Mirkwood, just the Shire, Mirkwood, the Lonely Mountain, just this little section of Middle Earth that everyone knows, and make you come from that and come from there. And then we can spread out. And as the supplements have added, they've added Rohan and the North and the Gondor, and gradually worked their way out. And that's been very much our feeling with Dune, is say, well, let's bring all this setting down to a focus, to what's the bit where you can do all the coolest stuff with Dune. Your first point, and we've got to think in terms of time and space with Dune, because of course we have all of this vast array of setting, although it is pretty much a no-brainer that to start it just before the first novel is the obvious place to start. I think it would have been a bit crazy to go let's set it with the honoured matres, or just after. I mean, you could do just after as the Ascension of Paul, but you are looking at losing some of the cool stuff you can do beforehand. Plus, I'm also a big fan of politics, so the idea of just before Paul takes control and kind of pulls everyone into line, it's nice to have all these the houses politicking and manipulating each other, and layers of all kinds of stuff going on. So that's kind of my favourite times. There's an element of that, but setting the era there was the first decision we had to make of where we actually set in time. And then we have to work out how much detail we can give about the setting. And the obvious answer was to say, let's focus on Arrakis. While it is generally considered, it's a bit of a backwater that everyone ignores. It's not a nice planet. Nobody goes there really for fun. But because of the spice, every noble house has got a spy there somewhere. There's no way they're going to let anything quite so important as spice slip their notice, and everyone is looking for a chance to get in on the action somewhere. So this sort of weird, I mean, I almost described some of our writers as a space Casablanca, that with everything going on that planet, but no one talking about it, it's just the perfect place to start the game, and put your players right in the thick of the action, right on the planet Arrakis. When people say, because then you've got the Fremen, you've got the sandworms, you've got the beautiful deserts, and something that I'm always a big fan of is not just to focus on the hostility of the place, but also its amazing beauty. I mean, I love those desert landscapes when you look at the rolling dunes and the shadows and the shapes of them patterned by the wind, and when you see the sun set over and these mixture of colours and this open sky that goes on for miles and miles. Utterly deadly at the same time, but spectacularly beautiful. There are a lot of wonders on Dune, a lot of wonders that a lot of the people going there are missing, apart from the Fremen, who are saying, can you all get off our planet, please? We'd rather liked it until you came along. So Arrakis has everything. It has beauty, it has mystery, it has complicated colonial issues and politics. It has people trying to backstab each other, and dark streets, all the things you want from a role-playing game. So
that's true.
Yeah, so it's the perfect place to start. But as we move through the products and things, having established, as you can see, with Sand and Dust is obviously our bringing out our Arrakis source book to get you started that way. But we will be moving out into various, we'll move out into the rest of the universe as time goes on. But we're going to take I say baby steps, but when you're talking, when the next step opens up hundreds and thousands of planets, they're all very large steps. But that's why the scale of Dune is so huge. So that's one of the wonderful things about it. But yeah, we will be opening up things and moving more towards traveling across the universe, interacting your house with other houses of the lands around. And as time goes on, we'll also, once we've really explored the current era, we will also look at the other eras. It's one of the reasons, one of the things that was very important to me at the start of getting this book was to break it into the eras of play, and those which you'll see in one of the early parts of chapter 1, so that we've sectioned it up so that we can refer to those eras in later supplements. So you will see in Sand and Dust, we do have some detail on Arrakis through all of those eras. So we're creeping in some of that information about setting your game in other eras. So we didn't want to produce books that then people go, oh, but then you've missed out half of the history of Arrakis. Well, no, let's try and get it all into the one book where we can. Although you can't because it's huge, but where we can,
Yes.
We'll get a good overview of the whole planet's history. And then as we go a bit further, people will be able to expand their own games in different directions as they learn more about the setting.
I just am gonna need to read that because Maddie have said text exactly. I love the passion you talk about Dune with.
It's so hard not to.
I truly understood you because when I start talking about Dune, it's exactly the same thing. I'm
Yes.
disappearing. I must say you talk a lot about upcoming the supplements, and which makes me very happy. But what I need to say now, when I start recording and playing one of the first games, Dune, I loved the first part of the role play game book. It's the short story, what's going on, and lots of the people ask me the questions: do I can play in the different times of that universe? And I said yes, it's a role play game, play it. But the other question about is which I'm, to be honest, I'm gonna be a little devil here because I do that. What to do when the player's action actually interfere with the known lore of that game?
Well, that's tricky. I mean, we are like all. This is one of the things I must admit that I love about role playing is you make a game and you create this book and you send it out there and people take it away and do the most amazing creative things with it. I absolutely love. I'm not one of those people going, "Oh, you're playing the game wrong." I love seeing people go to crazy places with stuff and weird sidelines and take stuff that you'd never thought. Oh, they really hooked into this bit. That was just like an aside we put in a sidebar, and people have hooked into it and they've gone off in this amazing direction and are writing whole adventures about X or Y. That's amazing. I mean, like all things, once you get the game in your hands, it is entirely up to you what you do with it. If your players want to storm the Imperial Palace, good luck against the Sardaukar. But if that's where they want to go, that is, of course, up to them.
The question is if they are Fremens.
Yeah. Now with our game, of course, we have to stick to the canon as it is. We don't, we are working with the amazing people at both Legendary and the Herbert Group. They've been extremely supportive and have given us some amazing feedback as well. So we're working very much within the bounds of their setting because it is their setting. It's very important to remember that we don't own Dune much as we would love to. It is a thing that belongs to somebody else. And we have to be very careful as to how we walk around in somebody else's garden and imagination, really. So we're following the canon. But there is an awful lot you can do within that canon because of the scope and the size of Dune. There's so much going on that nobody would ever notice. Whole houses could rise and fall that would never get recorded in the canon. I mean, we have had. I mean, some things we have to be careful. We have one the adventure that's coming up in Sand and Dust is one that takes place during a water shortage on Arrakis. That was quite a big. That would be quite a big moment. So we've established when we were talking to the license holders. They're saying, is that a thing that if that just sort of happens and fades away, that's not going to change. It's not going to stop Paul taking control of the Imperium. It's not going to destroy House Atreides. It's not going to cause the fall of the Harkonnen or something. No, that's fine. So we can carry on. So they have been amazing to let us play in their playground a little bit. But it's also been really good to take some of the candidates and work hand in hand with them. So it is one of the things I absolutely love about one of my favourite things in the books. So you will probably see something like this coming up at some point. Is when Paul takes control. Spoiling from the movie a little bit, but hopefully everyone here has read the books and knows the story. When Paul takes control and threatens the Emperor and says to him, you know, the collected houses of the Landsrat are up above us now in various guild highliners and frigates, and they're watching what you do right now. That's one of my favourite bits, because I love the idea that while all this stuff has been going on Arrakis, and it's, you know, world, galaxy, universe shaking stuff, there has still been a load of politics. You know, the Emperor is beholden to the Landsrat. They are up there judging him, and all manner of other political games are going on about which house has got his backing, which are his allies, which ones can he count on, who's going to stand with him if this new upstart Fremen army decides to take control, who can he trust if the spices flow is in jeopardy. And all of this stuff is going on. Masses of gaming, masses of adventure and politics, but nothing that we actually see in the book. And so to a certain degree, it's, you don't, the canon is great. The canon is the framework. It's the skeleton you can put the meat on. It's not a thing you need to fight to get the adventures to happen, because there's so many important things your players can be involved in. You know, you can take whole planets and you won't affect the canon. It's amazing that way. It's just marvelous.
That's true. Special that with the creation of the new houses, you have free will to do whatever you want, and put the impact of the Landsrat, put the impact on Com. That's just something beautiful. But I want to go back a little bit in your past, because I have the questions from the fans of your publishing games. Have you got the project that was looking all good in your head and that was very perfect idea, but later when you have tested was not so good to publish?
Oh, mixture, because I probably don't play test as much as I ought to, and then probably just go la la la, it's fine, and just make it. This is the other joy of role playing is if you make board games, you have to make them work, because if they don't, board gamers quite rightly will go, this just doesn't work, and we'll not play it, because a board game is a very complicated series of cogs and gears when it comes to rules, and it needs to be very balanced and structured. But role-playing games, I don't think there's any role-playing game group in the history of role-playing games that has taken a book and run it exactly the way it's been written in the rules, or have actually taken it the setting the way it's been written, to be honest, sometimes. So to a certain degree, you've got to, as a games designer, it's one of the sort of secrets, you've actually got a bit more leeway, because whatever you put out there, people will often take and go, well, it didn't work at all, but we've been playing it for 10 years because we just tweaked a couple of bits and made it work, and it's brilliant now. So role-playing is a little more forgiving in that. But there are things I've come to, mostly with card games things. There are some things, sometimes you'll build something and it'll work. I best do the illustrator, I think, some card games I've a while ago. There's one that I made was a sort of based on Sherlock that I keep sort of peddling to different places, hoping that I can reskin this with different bits and pieces, which is where you were solving cases and whoever got the most points was the winner. And that one came together and the numbers worked, and every time I play tested it, it was just absolutely fabulous. But there's been a couple of card games since. I mean, one of them I made a sort of Alice card game where you're trying to move around Wonderland and escape it, and there's another one where you're trying to be the evil overlord and send your minions a dice, and you send them out to collect different cards. The minions you put on a card, you roll them to see if you can beat a difficulty number of that card to claim it. So the idea of the game is, do you think you're going to be lucky and spread lots of minions out hoping you'll get lucky rolls, or do you try and play by the maths and make sure you only send enough to guarantee that you're going to get what they get? And things like, and every time I've played those, they just haven't quite worked. You've gone, no, this doesn't, I don't know what the numbers are or why it's not fitting together. But I say role-playing games are a bit more forgiving, because part of it, my usual advice to any new GM is, and this kind of applies to creating setting and things as well, is if you find a way to make sure your players can love their characters, they really won't care about the rest of the game. There is, if you get them where they think, I just want to be this character. This character is so cool. They get to do all this really cool stuff. I just love inhabiting them for an hour. It doesn't matter what the game is, because they're like, I'm there. So to a certain degree, making sure that the players have everything they need to create the character they want will get you a lot of the way through the system. And again, this is part of why I'm quite a fan of either something simple or something tried and true. I mean, we're very lucky with Modiphius and 2D20 in that Nathan has been working on this system for years, and he has adapted it to so many different things. So it was really a case of, rather than the old days where a lot of games companies would go, right, it's our house system, and the house system is like that, make the setting fit it, which is a bit of a shame. There were kind of clunky games came out around that time because they had to fit the house system, whatever it was. Modiphius has gone the other way around, where they have this house system, 2D20 system, but they adapt it quite a lot to each different game to make sure it functions the way that game needs it to work. But at the core is always the same, so you always know it's going to work, which is a brilliant way to work from. Because worst case scenario, we knew from the start that the system would function. The only question was, is it a system that will really give people the Dune thereafter?
Well, actually, I have that, for example, in front of me, I have the Mutant Chronicles, that is D20 game too. And it's when I compare these two books, I actually say, hey, that's these two games, different creations, different worlds, they work together. And why not mix them? Because the ideas of the mechanic of the game and everything is so simple and so creative that it's just like, wow, you can do whatever you want actually with this.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, let's say I've written thing. I do it for Ian World. I do a little occasional column I call Game Design Masterclass, which is where not that I really know very much, but I basically pick out in these things that I really love about particular systems. They go, oh, check out this rule because there's a really cool bit of games design here. And some of the things, one of the things I absolutely love about 2D20 is the difficulty 0 roll, because it's a constant thing. I find in a lot of games, you'll go to the particular example, so you go to a party, and the first thing the player characters usually do, certainly in my games anyway, is say, right, I'm going to take a turn around the room and I'm going to chat to loads of people and get what all the gossip is. And as a GM, you go, right, well, unless I actually prepared a specific gossip they need to find, then I've got to kind of make up some gossip. And then if I make up some gossip, they're going to kind of go with it and then sidetrack onto a completely different sidebar in the adventure. And I'm going to be making up a whole new adventure because I said somebody's having an affair with someone's mistress, and now they've decided to follow up on that, which isn't the stereo at all. Or I've got to give them the clues they really need, but there's going to be a lot of useless information out there as well. So what you can do with 2D20 is the GM could say, okay, I'll let you do a difficulty 0 communicate roll in the terms of Dune, where they go, right, I'll roll that, and that roll, because it's difficulty 0, you can't fail it, but every success gives you points to your momentum pool. And when you come later on to do something more important, that momentum pool is waiting there to give you the bonus points. And you can work that into the story. So you can go, right, well, now I'm going to challenge the Duke about to tell him he's a liar to his face. I'm going to use some of this momentum that I built up from my difficulty 0 roll as, I heard a rumor about something he was doing, or I heard that his weakness is if you catch him while he's eating the prawn canapé, he's always really distracted. And those things you've got all this wonderful narrative stuff you can add, but you've got this really nice system for just that gives the players a definite bonus for things that the GM otherwise would go, I don't really know what to do with that. So there's some lovely things in that, and it's again simple, straightforward system, and it's quite nice. It encourages you to spend these points and cycle them around quite quickly, which is quite new. And the more I've played with Dune, I mean, I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I came into Modiphius doing some Star Trek things, but otherwise I hadn't seen an awful lot of the 2D20 system. And the more I've got to know it, the more I've got to love it. There's some really nice bits and pieces and tweaks to it, and it just really works nicely for Dune.
You said that your opera house have been on the Kickstarter, but Dune was actually pre-ordered. It wasn't on the crowdfunding. What are your thoughts about the crowdfunding or the other ways to sell your game?
Well, crowdfunding is I think it's changed the face of the industry to a certain degree. There's a lot of issues about it. I mean, I love it as a thing because it gives you, certainly as an independent creator, it gives you the option to get a game out there, to see if to build. If you do this a lot, you can build up a customer base. But obviously, the more Kickstarters you do, and the more you fulfill successfully, then of course, the more you build up a customer base that are interested in what your next production is going to be. So there's a lot of, and it's great to be able to fund something and build it up before you do things. I mean, some of the downsides though these days is that the bar has got quite high for Kickstarters now, because there are so many amazing creative people creating so many amazing games that it's a lot of times, I think it's sadly a lot of independent creators or very new people will look at things and go, oh, if they can't produce a really cool page with a great video and loads of artwork, oddly, you've got to spend quite a lot of money to set up your Kickstarter so it can do well. So I think sometimes the practice of it has moved away from some of its original goals to a certain degree. But the thing itself is fabulous, and I certainly recommend. I mean, the two things I would recommend for anyone new to games writing, people who want to create their own stuff, because it's very unlikely, sadly, that if you bring your game to a games company and say, can you publish my game, it's very unlikely they will actually do that, because they've probably got another 6 games that they're trying to get around to printing. But Kickstarter will let you get your game out there. And the other one is the community content, which I thoroughly recommend. I've done quite a lot of one of these for 7th Sea. I've had loads of fun writing for those. Loads of companies are doing them. There's the DM's Guild. Free League has got lots for Tales from the Loop and Vesson. There's hundreds of them out there. And if you find a game you love and you want to just write some stuff, you can. It's a nice way to make a little bit of extra money on it as well. But it creates a slightly more professional profile. You can say, look, I've made all these community things, and get you into the habit of writing and crafting game stuff. So those very, very good.
I have the bad habit that I don't write. I just create in my head, and everything disappears.
Yeah, I mean, this is the key advice I give to anyone who wants to write role-playing games, write their own stuff. And this may seem obvious, but it's often the thing people forget, is write it first. Don't start thinking about how you're going to market it, what the cover's going to be like, who you're going to get to do an artist, because all of those things will stop you actually writing it, because they're really cool and they're fun. And you'll start, I could do this, and this would be great. And you start imagining the game when it's out there on shelves, which is wonderful and inspiring. But until you have actually written it, got all the words on paper in nice, plain, horrible blank text, and done it, you haven't got anything to work with yet. And it's often that people get distracted with all the other cool stuff and setting up all these things or what their business is going to be like, and forget that you must get the damn thing written. Then you can start looking at things. Sometimes it's the thing I will hold on to. I will start writing something. It's one of my own projects. I will try really hard not to do anything but write it till I have it done, and then start looking at bits and pieces. And then it's a lot more fun, because you can look at art and covers and things like that. And and you know where you're going. You know what your game is. you could be playtesting it at the same time, and while you're thinking about what artists you could get involved and things like that.
And like Aramil just a few seconds ago said, role-playing game a day 2021, right? It's just, that's very good tip exactly for everyone who wants to create anything, even just only the short stories for their own campaign to get it. And actually it's good to have that a lot of the different type of tools to do it. Canka or other web pages, they're gonna very helpful for the GMs nowadays.
It's my sort of standard advice when people say, oh, I want to be a writer. Well, the first question then is, what's stopping you? Because as soon as you put words on a page, you are a writer. You have every right to be a writer. You have every right to call yourself a writer. If you are writing things, you are a writer. In one sense, doing that is the easiest thing in the world. The tricky bit is being a good writer. And that's the bit we're all working desperately hard to try and get. And that only comes with practice. But as soon as you put words on a page, you are a writer. So do it. Just get it happening. And you will get better. If you keep writing, you will improve.
Well, to improve, that's the most important thing. That's to just practice, and again.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the one.
And it's the same with artists, I imagine. It's one of the things that annoys me is sometimes people have this. We have this image of the writer as being. And I've had this from professional writers. I've talked to some, writers I've worked with who do phenomenal work. And they've said, it doesn't feel like a writer because it's hard work for me, because they imagine, and everyone imagines, that, a real writer will, sit at their typewriter, usually at a nice wooden desk with a countryside vista out of their window, and the muse will strike them, and they will just hammering away like the titles of Murder, She Wrote. They will just be tapping away on a keyboard, and it will flow through them, and whoosh, there it goes. And it's absolute rubbish. Every now and again, some writers get a moment where you dive into the computer, or you're typing away, and you realize, I've done like 2,000 or 3,000 words and I didn't notice the time, or that was really working. But 9 times out of 10, writing is you nail yourself to the chair, you have to get some words on the paper. Sometimes it's even better to go, even if you get 1,000 rubbish words on a paper, you've got something to edit later, and you just have to write. And so often people think that because if they're finding it hard or they're finding it difficult, that they're not real writers, when actually that's exactly what they are. They are perfectly real writers. They're doing what everyone else is doing. And if you ever disbelieve that, just look at any of the interviews they do with writers. One of my favourites, I think, was Russell T Davies, who gave us the new version of Doctor Who, which I absolutely love. And and all the other dramas he's done have been fantastic. And I remember seeing someone interview him and talking about how do you write and what do you think. And he says, I hate it that I've got to do a Christmas edition for Doctor Who, and I love Doctor Who, but I won't start writing it till after Christmas or something. I've got a deadline of November. I'm not going to start. And I could save myself. I will spend all of Christmas smoking and worrying myself to death, and I still won't put a word on the paper until a week before the producer is about to fire me, and I will sit down and I will do a script for him. And he just says he's not finding it the most difficult thing in the world to do. And this is the guy who's written Doctor Who, So, for anyone out there who wants to write, just do it. And don't worry about what your style is or other people tell you should be doing. Write the way that works for you, but get words on a page. Any words on a page, doesn't matter. Get them on there. And you are a writer, and you are working, and you are absolutely worthy as any of the ones. Some people are having it easy and typing with the Muse, but the Muse thing is just rubbish. It doesn't happen.
It's basically, even for other example, we can say Neil Gaiman, who started with Terry Pratchett, and he worked out his own style. He wrote now so many books known on the whole world when we have the TV series and everything, that even the game Liminal I'm just taken as a neverwhere, because it's the same feeling, the same vibe of the London that is magical and have different type of the things in it. That was just like, whoa, that's Gaiman. It's just beautiful.
Yes, and the other one I'd always have to warn people of is every time, get your ideas on paper, because ideas that you have are a gift, and the weird, strange, whatever it is that sends them to your brain, if you don't do anything with them, it will pass them to somebody else. Because I remember years ago, I had an idea for writing a game where you played domestic cats. And I didn't get around to finishing it for 5-10 years. It was like my back burner project. And then John Wick came out with Cat, the role-playing game. Much the same thing as I'd had in mind. And I got caught up with John at a convention once. And I said to him, jokingly, because it's only fair, I said to him, "Oh, I hate you. I had that idea and you wrote it down." And he said, "Yeah, but if it's any consolation, I had an idea for, wouldn't it be great to write a fantasy world where evil had won? And those guys over there did midnight before I could get it done."
Oh my.
Sure, if I'd gone to them and said, "What did you do?" Eventually it would come back to a spiral where someone would come back to some game I'd written and said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to do that, but you wrote it first." So I am constantly, I mean, and I had a bit of it because I have done, thankfully they're quite different, so I'm still going to do this if I get back to it. But the game I'm working on at the moment is a Jane Austen game, which is one of the ones on my back burner at the moment, which I'm basically finished but need to do some little tweaks to it. And just as I was getting ready to really do a last push to get it out there, the amazing Good Society game came out from it's an Australian couple of games writers, I think Australia and New Zealand, Story Brewers, that's it. And it's an amazing game, it's brilliant work. And I was like, oh, damn, you've just done the Jane Austen game before me. So now, thankfully, it's that we're quite different. Mine's got a supernatural thing to it, that it's still worthwhile me doing it, and I will do eventually. But if you have an idea, do it now, because that idea will be passed to somebody else.
And as we talk about the writing and creating, I need to ask that perhaps you're gonna give us a small crumble of the cake. Have you got any new projects brewing in your head right now that you want to publish?
Oh God, so many. I've got a long list of I would like.
So the biggest one that you want to exactly to show on our tables that we can say to you, we play this. The biggest one.
Well, the main, I say, the Jane Austen one I've been working on for quite some time, and that one I need to. A lot of that is down to the printing, because what I would love to do is produce a limited edition that looks like an early 18th century novel. So it looked like it's a role-playing game printed in the 18th century. That's what I'm hoping for. But
the old type paper.
Yeah, parchment paper and all those. Yeah. It'd be horribly expensive, but we shall see. It's finding a printer that will do it.
Sorry to say that, but shut up! You have my money.
Oh, fabulous! No, it's one down. That's good to know. I mean, this one, to give you the blurb for that one, it's the game's called Manners and Monstrosities. The idea behind it is that the year is 1813. The zombie invasion is happening, but because this is England, no one's talking about it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's true.
So the idea is all of the wealth and power is with the 1% nobility, and they've looked at zombies and they've thought, well, the zombie, but no lady or gentleman of quality could possibly become such a shambling creature. We have breeding; it just couldn't possibly happen. So it's not our problem. The lower classes will have to deal with it, and your characters are in the sort of, there isn't really a middle class in Jane Austen, but your characters are in the lower end of the nobility, the top 6% of the country. And you have the option to get in on their balls and try and nudge some resources and help out from the nobility. But you're not so tainted by the reputation of getting involved with zombies and vampires and all the other stuff that's coming out of the woodwork. So I had someone, when I play tested this a couple of times, I had someone defeat a werewolf with French poetry, which is one of my favourite role-playing moments, I think, of all time, where they chased this, they'd given chase to this werewolf in a carriage, and the werewolf had turned them into the prey, and so there's this thump on the top of the carriage, and the whole of the top of the carriage is ripped off by this great clawed furred creature that leers down on the two women in the carriage. And one of them, they're both sisters, and the elder sister throws herself over her sister to protect her. And I said, what are you going to do? The werewolf is bearing down on you. And she looks at me, can I try looking at her character sheet? Some poetry? And I sort of, right, well, I'm not going to rule it out, but tell me where you're going with this. So she said, well, can I try and recite a line of poetry that is so beautiful and done the right way that I remind this creature of its humanity in some way and stay its hand? And I went, okay, I'll give you that, that's fine. But we worked out that she had to basically spend all of her bonus points and all of her dice and all that. She had to roll a 6 on a d6, the way the system worked. And she did. And the whole table crowded around saying, is she going to make it? She spits out this line of poetry, and the werewolf, a single tear ran down the third cheek of this werewolf. Its rage surpassed a moment. Then, of course, someone shot it and it jumped on them. But yeah, so that one I had a lot of fun. I mean, and I knew that one game was working when some other players playing the same adventure, they saw a werewolf smash out of a basement where they're all dancing at this ball, and they sort of looked at each other and went, yeah, but we're enjoying the dancing, so let's just ignore that. So that
That's so English.
Yes, I've had so much fun with the game, and it will. I mean, some of it has gone into. I think they have announced this now. So, it's one of the other things I wrote during lockdown. I've done a Regency source book for Call of Cthulhu, which I'm really looking forward to seeing come out with. That one was an adventure I wrote a while ago for a friend's birthday, and Chaosium quite liked that one, so I did another one to go with it and a load of setting information, and then turning that into a book. So there's some of what I've been doing. All my research for Manners and Monstrosities has gone into that. But yes, it will come out sooner or later if I get a space to breathe between Dune and all the other pieces. I mean, this is kind of the problem with getting involved in the role-playing industry, is it is full of cool stuff, and there is so many amazing ideas, and this is why it's actually quite lucky, because you can talk to other games. I talked to, I think, Paul Williams, who's done so much stuff, and we were chatting about gaming ideas and looked at each other and went, oh, hang on, we probably shouldn't be telling each other our game ideas. What if one of us uses it? And looked at each other and went, we've got too many ideas to get around to our own. We're never going to steal each other's. It's just too much work. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff. You find yourself piling up the work because you go, oh, and I could do this, and oh, they've got that, and oh, can I get involved on that? And it's very easy to add to your workload far more than you should do. I've already done that at the moment because I've got some Doctor Who going on, and Dune is ongoing. But I'm working on some stuff with Mark Kelly at Dirty Vortex as well, which is going to be really cool. And then, of course, trying to get around to my own projects like Manners and Monstrosities. So you find that you fill things up quite quickly because there's just too much cool stuff out there.
As a consumer, I can say that a long-time game master, I am feeling sometimes like I'm the kid in the candy shop because I see the new upcoming role-play games. It's just like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want to play this, I want this play. And they have a massive library of the books, and then I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling. And I have the other one where you see a game you want to play, and then nobody else will run it but you. So you end up never actually getting to play it because
True. That's
true. You have to run it.
Okay. I have the last 2 questions to you before we're gonna finish. The most important question from my side, I think the most of the fans of your creation work, it's last week Modifius have announced a new supplement for Dune, which I've mentioned, the Sand and the Dust, which I'm really waiting for, just only because it bless the maker, his water. But can you tell us a little bit more about upcoming publishings, not only from the Dune world, but actually from the Modifius, if you can release some information, what we can expect this year?
I can't say too much because if it's not announced, I'm not allowed to talk about it. But I can say we do have quite a long plan. We made a sort of organised with the license holders a selection of books that would take us through for the next couple of years to establish what we wanted to produce initially. And of course, once we get to the end of that series of books, then we'll look, and see, is the the game doing well enough? Are we going to justify continuing it and all that sort of thing? Although, spoiler alert, I think we probably will. It's been brilliantly successful. We really love how people have dived into Dune. There is so many people who are excited for the movie and excited for the game and just love the Dune setting. I think we'll be doing this for a while. But we have, we have Sand and Dust coming out. A couple of the Atreides and Harkonnen dice sets from their way, which are looking really cool. We have our beginners campaign box set, which is a little different from the usual starter set that you'll be able to see. But I have at least one more book we have drafted up. I'm having stuff back from the writers already. Another 2 that we've got outlines for in process, and another load of accessories that we're working on as well. So, as well as a couple of PDF adventures, we'll hang some of those out soon. So we have got a lot in play at the moment. There is enough to keep us going for another year or 2 at least. And it's going to cover, the sort of things you'd expect. I mean, I usually have to be more circumspect because one of the guys on our forum said, "Oh, I've been following what Andy's saying, and so I expect we'll have this, 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 and this." And I thought, damn, he's actually kind of right. I probably ought not to be saying too much more.
Actually, I'm gonna waiting impatiently because I want to have all, and especially when I see that special edition cover for the Sun and Dust, it's beautiful. And when I see Shai Hulud on it, I was like,
Yeah.
I want it. So the first minute you have announced it, I just pre-order it. It just
I have to do a shout out to Chris Webb and also Mark Whitton. Has been amazing graphic design work from this. I mean, I am under no illusions about me, and my contribution to Dune is mostly in writing and in the production, sort of driving the line and the content. But I know really what people have looked at when they picked up Dune off the shelf is they've gone, wow, the art, and oh my god, that collector's edition. Neither of which I had anything to do with. Katja Thomas is our art director. She's done fantastic work, and she's worked tirelessly to find the right artists for Dune and create that sort of image and the look that we've got. And that's what people are going crazy for at the moment. I mean, I hope that the writing will bring them back to the supplements and make them go, I want more of this because it's a game that works and a game that they will fall in love with. And I very much hope they do. But I know that all the initial wow factors I've seen from people, a lot of it has been, this game just looks amazing. And all props to the guys who have done that because they've done spectacular work. I have an amazing on this game, I really do.
What I can say for sure, it's a massive teamwork. It's not only the graphics, it's not only the text, it's just all the work you have put in to create this game.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, this is the thing that's easy to forget. I mean, I see it's interesting because I see this both ways round with my theatre work because I'm a technician in the theatre. So I'm quite used to everyone looking at the actors and the acting company and going, oh, wow, you've done this, oh, you're incredible. And then you say, people don't even know my job exists. Perhaps the time go, oh yeah, there were some lights, weren't there? Is that involved? And going, yeah, well, in theatre, it's a teamwork. Without the lighting, the sound, and everything else, the actors look pretty stupid on the stage. And it's the same with role playing because I'm in the other side of that when I'm role playing. I get to be, writers and artists tend to be the celebrity people. And oh yeah, you're a writer and artist. But what it's very easy to forget is that there are graphics people, editors, even the people who are getting. I mean, Modifius is an amazing logistics guy who just makes sure that these books get from printer to shop, and all of that team are vital to making these books happen. And every single one of them has an essential act to play. And and it's a shame we don't expand more about the vast work. Because there is a lot of people in the same way that people who get into theatre and want to be part of theatre, a lot of them think, well, I'd like to be part of theatre, but I don't want to act. A lot of people might want to get into the role-playing industry, but not want to be writers or artists. And there are so many opportunities for them. In fact, they are desperately thin on the ground. If you'd go to any role-playing company and say, I'd like to just do production management or just be on the phone to gaming companies, and not be, this is my stepping stone into being a writer or an artist. You are gold dust. I mean, a good editor is worth their weight in gold in this industry, without doubt. And same for production people, managers, logistics agents, graphic designers, layout artists. The list goes ever on. So there are many opportunities for people who aren't that keen on being writers or artists.
I can say that at
Mm.
this moment, what I can say is it's going to be advertising for the Modifuse at this, but I know that for sure they're looking now actually for the person to management their social media. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's open, so that anyone who know English and want to work for the Modifuse, they can sign up, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it is amazing how Modiphius has expanded as a company. I mean, I used to work with Chris Birch when we were both part of Cubicle 7. I used to run the Victoriana line, which is now passed on to Walt Chudowski, and he's doing some amazing work with a 5th edition version, which is really, we've been playing some of that. It's incredible. And Chris produced the Star Blazer Adventures for Cubicle 7. And later on, he moved on to start doing his Modiphius. And over a very short space of time, he's now got a legion of people working in the company, all manner of games lines. It's amazing how well the company has expanded and grown from just Chris and out into the whole. There's Cam as well, all the business people he's just assembled all the right team, and they're doing some amazing work. And many of them, particularly Sam Webb, has held my hand through a lot of the stuff I don't know as well, brilliantly. So it's it's always great to see people and friends, who love the work and love the games, just expanding and doing well things. So,
That's true. And then my last questions before we're gonna finish, Andrew, any tips and tricks that you want to pass on the young role-play game creators, players, and game masters who started with their projects or making the first steps in that beautiful world of imagination?
Well, I suppose I've already gone on about this quite a lot. Say, write it, make it happen. It won't happen unless you write it. And so do it, get the words on the page. There is very good advice that Margaret Weiss actually repeats quite a lot. I can't remember where the quote comes from originally, but it says, keep reading, keep writing, and keep your day job. Because the other advice is play as many role-playing games as you can. I think this is one that John Wick's quite comes out with quite a lot, and he's quite right. There are a number of games you will see where someone will go, this is a completely new game. And you'll look at it and go, well, this is a slightly new version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of clear all you've ever played is Dungeons and Dragons, so you're not aware that actually most of these innovations are already being done. But if you, I suppose, so yes, write as much as you can, play or read as many other role-playing games as you can, and learn from other people who have done these games. And but the main one is love what you are doing, because sitting down and writing a role-playing game or any project, novel or anything, you're talking of a lot of hours and a lot of words on paper and a lot of heartbreak and misery sometimes along the way. You have to love that game. Know that your game is brilliant and you just want to play it. Don't write it because you think it will be a great marketplace filler, or it's a necessary addition to X, or you think you'll make, the worst, you think you'll make money from it. You probably won't. There's not an awful lot of money in role playing. There's enough, thankfully, but there's not much. So the only thing you have left is love what you do. And if you love your game, you will write the best game you can, and that love will come through. And people will pick up your game and go, wow, this is awesome. Because, it's weird. Words, blank words on dead trees can transfer that if you do it right. If you do it with passion, it will get to your customers and they'll pick up your game and go, yeah, I just want to play it because it lives in some way. And that's one of the things that role-playing is brilliant with. You're creating worlds and building people. There's no better hobby.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
Andrew, I must say thank you very much for that lovely chat and
No,
for your wisdom, for your answers.
As you can tell, I can go on all night, and
I could
I
do that
will chat.
too, if not the work tomorrow.
Yes, I know. I will chat for hours. So
I hope we can be able to get back to the talk, and not only for the interview, but just chat, because it's very interesting, and I have so much things to say and ask and talk about it, especially about the role-play games, and only not
yeah,
that, about the theater too. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much that you have spent the time to talk with us, to
no, it's
polish
been
our
my pleasure.
listeners. And also, I think it's gonna go worldwide, because I want to do worldwide. And have a good evening, have a good time in your theater, and I'm waiting for more and more and more supplements for Dune. I'm not gonna let you go down with that. I'm gonna be even the only one last customer, but I'm gonna buy it.
Well,
And for
we
the
have,
other games.
well, as they say in Hellraiser, we have such sights to show you.
True, true. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Just
Thank you very much. Maddie, I'm gonna give back the microphone to you.
Thanks, Miś Gry, and thank you, Andrew, as well, once again, for agreeing to come to us for this interview, for this chat. It was lovely to listen to you, and as Miś Gry said, to your words, to your wisdom, to your great tips, that were mostly close to my heart as well. Well, you're welcome here on our server. Sometimes we have chats about roleplay games, about life, so you're always welcome here to come anytime and talk to us and just be our guest, feel like home here. And well, that was the seventh part of our świadome RPGowanie. And thank you, Andrew, once again. So we hear each other somewhere here some other time. And once again, subscribe to Miś Gry and his social media. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Śnienie Przestrachem. Give us likes, hearts, and all your love. Thank you. I przechodząc na polski, na koniec dziękujemy, Andrew, że u nas gościłeś, że się zgodziłeś u nas być. I to był piękny wywiad, to była piękna rozmowa. Misiu Gry, świetna robota. Zachęcam jeszcze raz do subskrybowania nas na YouTubie, do odwiedzania oczywiście naszego serwera, do naszych social mediów i oczywiście do social mediów Misia Gry. I słyszymy się kiedyś tu w eterze, gdzieś w przestrzeni. Dzięki. To było 7. świadome RPGowanie.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Hey, thank you guys.